All right. All right. Let's go ahead and get started, and people can continue to join as we're going. Welcome, friends. Welcome, everybody, to the webinar today. I'm your host, Brent Young, over here at Empire Pro. I think most of you know us, but just in case, we're a wholesale distribution partner for your AVL success. That's what we do. We have over 100 leading brands. We do rapid nationwide shipping and expertise from our group of industry professionals. So that's about us. As you know, most of you know us. Don't hesitate to contact with questions or project help. You can either reach out to your account manager, or if you don't have one or you don't know who it is, you can email us sales@empirepro.com or respond to any of our emails that we've sent out in the past. So with that, I want to get into this webinar. The purpose today is to equip you with solutions and best practices for scaling AV meeting rooms from small to large, simple to complex. Our presenters today, Shure and PTZOptics, have complementary products. They're solutions for your next conference room or meeting room project. So here's the agenda for today. We're going to have 3 portions to this webinar, and it's going to follow just the complexity of the room. So we'll start with simple rooms, then we'll go to semi-complex meeting rooms, and then we'll go to complex meeting rooms. So to make it fun, at the end of each portion, or at the end of each complexity of the room, we'll stop for a brief Q&A so that you don't have to wait till the end to get clarity on a topic or a question that you have. Then we'll wrap up with a quick quiz. Thank you to PTZOptics and Shure for giving some great prizes today, and that will be fun. And with that, I'd like to introduce and thank our presenters today. So first, I'd like to introduce Brandy Johnson from PTZOptics. She helps customers and partners unlock the power of PTZ technology to connect collaborators both in the near end and the far end. So welcome, Brandy. Glad to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And then we also have Ross Hornbuckle from Shure by way of Gear Tech. He specializes in conference and meeting room environments, making Shure technology accessible and tailored to each client's unique needs. So I thank you for your expertise and insights. And with that, let's go ahead and start off with Ross from Shure and a simple meeting room. Ross, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Brent. Thanks for having me here to present, and thanks for Brandy for joining me. I think this will be a fun back and forth discussion. I have a couple of short remarks here at the top. Please, anybody throw questions in the chat. Happy to get to them. There are so many Shure topics to cover. I could drone on and on and on, but I won't. Shure has been in business for 100 years. I got my new 100-year polo shirt on, so we can imagine we've got tons of different products and options. But we're going to zero in today on the Microflex ecosystem. And everything I'm going to point out here is just from the Shure website. So we can share these links, or these can be easy to find for yourself if you'd like. When we think of conference rooms or meeting spaces, we're primarily drawing from the Microflex ecosystem on our side. And this is going to be a group of products that range from microphones, wired and wireless, and digital signal processors, hardware, software, some loudspeakers, some PoE-enabled loudspeakers, some passive loudspeakers, and some software that ties it all together. But first, I want to just mention, what do we mean by simple and complex when it comes to the audio portion of a meeting space? If we go back 10, 12, 15 years, what made designing an audio system so challenging is that you would often have microphones from one manufacturer, a central DSP from another manufacturer, maybe an amplifier, loudspeaker, sound reinforcement solution from a third manufacturer. And commonly, those would all speak maybe different languages in terms of network audio. As we moved from analog to network audio, Shure in the Microflex ecosystem, we adopted the Dante protocol. But way back when, you might have had a QSys core processor using the QLAN protocol, or a biamp processor using AVB. And so just the interoperability between your microphone system and your central DSP could be complicated. Then it's, what microphone do you choose for the room? How is the people in the meeting space going to interact with the audio equipment? What do they perceive as simple and easy to use versus complex? As we've evolved over time, what we have found is that, well, people generally speaking might not want to interact with a microphone. They might forget to mute it. They might forget that it's muted. They might not want all the clutter on the table. So what we have found is how we can simplify is to have a group of products that work seamlessly together. Here's something we just introduced earlier this year. This is called the IntelliMix Room Kit. We've got 4 different kits, and now when we think simple versus complex, it's not necessarily small room versus large room, although that can play a role. What we think of as simple now might be something that automatically discovers all of the components in the system, takes care of that network audio routing for you. So even though we're using the Dante protocol, within the Shure system, there's going to be device discovery, network audio routing, all happening between these devices. This particular group of products is for a Microsoft Teams room specifically. That's why you see the little certified for Microsoft Teams badge here, though you do see options for large and small rooms. The microphone, the square looking thing, doesn't exactly look like a Shure SM58, but that is a microphone array, and it has a loudspeaker built in. That's the MXA 902. I've actually got one here in the studio with me. There's an MXA 902. It drops into the ceiling tile grid, and one of those covers a 20 by 20 square foot space. And it will automatically deploy up to 8 what we call lobes. I like to think of them as spotlights around the room to capture up to 8 simultaneous talkers. All of the processing happens internally within the MXA 902. It's then routed directly to the IntelliMix compute device, which is a Windows PC. Use that to launch your Microsoft Teams room and you're off and running. If you're not using the Microsoft Teams platform, if you want to be a little more platform agnostic, maybe you're using Zoom or you're using Teams and Zoom or Google Meet or any of the conferencing platforms, we have something called the MXA 902 plus any USB bundle. Again, this is a microphone and a loudspeaker. It's in the ceiling. You're running a single network cable up to it for power over Ethernet. You've got a separate box, the ANI USB. This is what's going to make the USB connection to your computer, and this becomes the audio portion of your meeting space for a room up to 20 by 20 square feet. And the routing is taken care of for you between these 2 devices. Simply plug them each into a network switch. They automatically discover each other. The echo cancellation, the auto mixing, the EQ, everything is done in the MXA 902 itself. So now we've got these simple solutions that if they fit your room size and your needs, really easy to deploy. Not a lot of under the hood configuration, though there could be if you want, but you don't necessarily have to. And that's what we're starting to think of more as a simple deployment, is having a lot of that routing, processing, aiming of the microphones happening for you. So that's a theme we're going to see more as we go throughout our discussion here.
Right on. Thank you so much, Ross. Brandy, I'll turn it over to you with Simple Room.
Thank you, Brent. I am going to share my screen. Let's see. So as far as a simple conference room space, with PTZOptics, PTZ stands for Pantsuit Zoom. So Pantsuit Zoom, we have PTZ cameras. We start at our Move SE, which is standard edition. Every one of our PTZ cameras do come with a USB, HDMI, SDI, IP, NDI, HDMI output. So it's got every output that you need in every camera, and they all come in a 12, 20, and 30 times zoom. And then we also have our studio line, which is a static camera. So for a simple conference room space, you could either have just a static camera, depending on the size of your conference room, and have a Studio SE going into your switch and into your streaming device, your streaming platform via NDI. using vMix and OBS. Doing that over NDI using vMix and OBS, it will prevent you from having to use a USB extender. You can actually extend your USB out via NDI.
Brandy, I don't think we're seeing your screen. It might be
Oh,
sharing on a different monitor. So if you want to share that one or drag it over.
I am so sorry.
No problem at
I
all.
selected it. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can. There you go.
Okay. So my apologies. The Studio SE, and I am a little under the weather. So excuse me if things, go a little awry. The box camera, which is the Studio SE 12 times zoom, that is the static camera, and then the Move SE 12 times zoom that you see on, if you're looking at the left, is the PTZ camera. But if you put that into the stream, to your streaming computer, go over vMix or OBS, then you can stream it out via NDI and extend your USB. And that would be like the simple, right? It's a small room. You just have one camera at the shot, at the table. And then your PTZ camera would be if you have a little bit of a larger room, or if you just want to be able to pan, tilt, or zoom and go over, actually point to people when they're talking. It also, the Move SE has auto tracking, so it can auto track somebody who's walking in front of the room and it's say presenting. The tracking is very stable. You just select the presenter and it'll stay on them until they leave. Or you can have a Move SE and a Studio SE. The images mirror each other, so you can see they will look exactly the same. And you can have them both going into that streaming computer and have one under the display and then one on the other side of the room. So with PTZ cameras, it's a lot simpler than audio. But back to you, Brent.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's our simple room portion. Go ahead and throw those questions in the Q&A if you have one. I'm monitoring it right now, and we'll go ahead and get those questions answered. If you come up with it later as well, feel free to ask about simple room later on down the road. But in the meantime, what we'll do is as this is being presented, feel free to go ahead and type those questions in the Q&A. We'll get them all queued up and ready to go. And then when we finish that portion, we'll go ahead and ask those questions. So not seeing anything here other than that someone says they're related to you, Ross, that they're your brother from another mother. And so I just want to reinforce that. I would say I see the resemblance. So thank you for that. We do have a question from James, who said, the spec, he wanted to know the spec, the quality on those cams, are they 4K or higher? That's for Brandy.
So the Move SE is 1080p. The Move 4K, we do have a 4K version, the Move 4K, and that would be 4K. And that is good. I got that for our complex rooms.
Great. So it sounds like we're going lower resolution for the simple room for this for purposes of separating those two solutions. Thank you, Brandy. And thank you, James. Any other questions in the chat? It's okay. If you come up with one, put it in there and we'll ask it in the next round of questioning, which will be in about 10 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and move on to the semi-complex rooms. And for that one, we're going to go ahead and, Brandy, you're going to lead off with this conversation. This is the middle or the semi-complex room solution. So Brandy, back to you.
I guess I could have kept it up. So a semi-complex room, we're going to actually integrate a Shure MXA 920. And we are going to take location from our Move we're actually going to move 4K for the semi-complex. And we are going to be able to voice track. So we'll be able to do audio tracking through the MXA 920 via mic lobe positions and camera presets. And how that is set up. So like we said, Move 4K is 4K. It has all the same features as your Studio SE. One thing about PTZOptics is we have made things very simple. You've got your Move 4K, which is 4K, your Move SE, which is 1080p. All cameras have every output. We also have a Link 4K, which is Dante AVH. So, but every camera has every output. Every camera has auto tracking. The only difference in the the main difference in the Move 4K and the Move SE is the Move 4K has more functionality when it comes to auto tracking. So you can do some other things like zoom in and out while it's tracking, decide how you want the presenter tracked, either upper body or full body. You can have a privacy mode. So if you are in healthcare or government or have like a meeting that is going awry and you want to turn it, not everybody to see it, you can turn privacy mode on and it'll do about face and cut audio. That's not available in the Move SE. The image sensor is also larger. It's a 1 1/8 inch Sony CMOS sensor in the Move 4K, so better image sensor. And it also, the Move SE does not have voice tracking. So there's no audio tracking in the Move SE. It's only available in Move 4K and the Link 4K. You set up the audio tracking in the web GUI. It is super easy. Basically, you go into the web GUI, you click on voice tracking, and then a page pops up, and then you search for the IP address of the MXA 920, you select it, and then you just select your preset based off of the mic lobe, and there's 16 positions that you can do. Super, even though it's semi-complex, it is kind of an easy setup to do. I can do it. So, and I like not very technical. So like I easily was able to set up a room without any explanation. And then in this room, we would also have a Studio 4K to go underneath the monitor. And I would have a Move 4K, and you could have maybe 1 or 2 Move 4Ks in the room depending on the size. Back to you, Ross or Brent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And so Ross, if you want to go ahead and lean in on that audio portion solution for semi-complex.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate it, Brandy. What a great handoff. I made a cameo appearance, the MXA 920 in your system diagram. Yeah, MXA 920. Let's get to that because I think this is a perfect transition in our mind from a simple to a more complex room. The ceiling microphones I was mentioning first. Now be careful with these part numbers. MXA 902. That was the one that does 20 by 20 square feet and includes a loudspeaker. The MXA 920 looks the same, square, it can drop into the ceiling tile grid. We also do have a round version. That one is a microphone only, and we say it can cover a 30 by 30 square foot room. So that's about twice the area of the MXA 902. Now that 30 by 30 square feet, that's a good presumption on our part. A huge influence on how large an area the microphone can cover is the room acoustics. And that's something we, of course, as the manufacturer, we don't know what your room sounds like. Another good way to judge simple to complex is how acoustically challenging your room is. And the more so, wide open high ceilings or floor to glass windows, concrete floors, a lot of the popular design these days looks great on camera, I'm sure, doesn't sound great by default. So something like the MXA 902 sounds fantastic, covers that 20 by 20 square foot area, whereas the MXA 920, MXA 920, we say 30 by 30. I've seen it in very well treated acoustic environments cover larger than 30 by 30 square feet. Now, if your ceiling height is going up to 14, 15, 16 feet and you're in that fishbowl style meeting space, maybe it's actually going to cover a little bit less than 30 by 30. So you're going to want to take that into account, but let's just use 30 by 30 to go from there. What the MXA920 allows you to do from an audio perspective, though, is tailor these coverage areas specifically to the size and shape of your room. So just to point out on the website here, this is the MXA920. We do have the square version that again drops into the tile grid. It can be pole mounted, which you see here. There is the round version as well. No difference in performance here. If you were to take the square grill off, what you would see is a circular array, right? The square form factor is simply to give us something easy to drop into the grid. So these two form factors perform identically in terms of their audio quality. But I'm going to shift over to our designer software. So this is what you use to kind of configure all of these Shure devices, and moving from that simple to complex room, now maybe you're going to want to get under the hood a bit. So here I've got an MXA920, which we've got plugged into our network. If I go over to the coverage, you'll see I've got it drawn out for the size and shape. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that a little better. But if your room was very short and very broad, and you wanted to be very careful about exactly where you're covering, notice the microphone is maybe not placed perfectly in the center of the room. Maybe you've got an HVAC return or something else going on in the ceiling that would prevent you from putting the 920 exactly where you want. With the 920, you can now draw out your specific coverage area. You can have multiple coverage areas if you want to eliminate a certain area of your room. Maybe it's next to the door that's got a vending machine right outside, or a very loud projector on a rolling cart that you want to avoid picking up signal from that area. You can have different coverage zones. But within this zone, the MXA920 will still automatically deploy those lobes to capture active talkers. This is still what we would call automatic coverage. And we'll get into, in our complex section, how you can be more detailed with the coverage. But if your room is, I would say, relatively complex in that it's a specific size and shape you want to cover, you get in here, you draw the square. That is going to give you a great audio capture from the 920. And I'll speak mostly about the audio side of the 920 here. We'll definitely cover more about what it can do from helping a camera tracking system in our next section. I do want to point out that here's a good example of routing the MXA920 into what we call the Microflex Wireless Next 2 system. I'll jump over to our website real quick. So as the room gets a little more complex, maybe you've got a presenter, maybe it's a training room, maybe for whatever reason you'd like to give somebody a handheld microphone or a body pack microphone, or a body pack with a lapel or lavalier headset style microphone. This is a little 2-channel wireless microphone system. But what it also is, it's rechargeable, incidentally. That's why you see the microphones docked in there. You see that it says certified for Zoom and Teams. There is a USB port on the back of the Next 2 base station, so you can directly connect this to your PC. What this 2-channel wireless microphone system also does is offer echo cancellation, auto mixing, EQ, all of the conferencing processing you would need, typically from a central DSP, but now we've built it into the wireless microphone system. So if we go back into our designer setup, you'll notice that inside of the MXA920, there is again automatic gain compensation, acoustic echo cancellation, noise reduction, conferencing processing. What that would normally happen in a central DSP is happening in the microphone, the MXA920. We've also got it so that there is processing inside of this. Is now kind of diving under the hood of the 2-channel wireless microphone system. Now remember, we routed in the audio, the Dante network audio, from the 920 into the Next 2 base station. We just drew a line there. That is now sending the audio from one to the other. That would come in our auxiliary Dante input. So again, I've got a ceiling microphone covering a 30 by 30 square foot area. Maybe that's where your meeting participants are primarily seated. But I've also got a handheld and a body pack for my presenters. So I've got a 2-channel wireless mic and I've got a ceiling mic, each of which need a network connection. So you've got 2 ports on a switch, but there is no central DSP because there's processing happening in each of these microphone endpoints. Then you see this USB input and USB output. That's when you make that USB connection to the PC. Your far side audio comes in over the USB input. That would be like how Brent, you're talking to me today. That comes over USB and then out into my room. How do I do that? Well, maybe I've got an amplifier. I'll drag that in. I've got it plugged in on the desk here. Again, I'm sending Dante network audio from one to the other. I don't have to get into Audinate Dante controller. I can do Dante routing straight from here. So from my 2-channel wireless mic system into my amplifier, which again is a PoE device, into my loudspeakers. And this is really the programming, so to speak, of your medium, in terms of complexity, meeting space. So this is just one example of it. You can see out here on the table, I've got all kinds of things that could work. We've got table microphones, we've got larger, multiple wireless mics. We do have hardware processors, software that can do the same thing. So lots of options. I think of moving from simple to complex as introducing more flexibility, which means more choices. So there's some decision making that has to happen. But we're prepared. There is processing happening in virtually all of these microphone endpoints. And if you need to, and we'll get into this in a sec, route things into a central DSP, we can do that too.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you, Ross. We're going to jump into the Q&A, so go ahead and throw those questions in there. We do have a few. The first one is for Brandy at PTZOptics, and it's from Tomer, who says, is it possible to use the PTZ cameras directly with Zoom or Teams, not through vMix or OBS?
It is. You would just deal with USB just like you would any other device. The
Great.
reason that we say OBS and vMix, it's a way to extend USB without any USB extender, because you can extend USB through the NDI signal.
Great. Thank you for that. And Tomer, if you need a follow-up question on that, feel free to post that in there. The next question we have is from George, and this is for Ross. Can the wireless mics be used in a mix minus managed via Dante Manager when using the multiple 902 combo mic speaker in a very large room situation?
Well, what a great transition to our complex room discussion. Yes is the short answer there. A couple of buzzwords probably to zero in on. Mix minus, typically we use the term mix minus in a meeting room context to refer to a voice lift system. So for anyone who hasn't configured a voice lift system before, that would be instead of having, like in my room, 4 ceiling speakers overhead, where I've got a mono signal, like the far side is talking to me in this room, and the exact same content is coming out of each of the 4 loudspeakers in my room. So I've got a single mono send that powers all of my loudspeakers. In a voice lift system, maybe my room is so large, it's 50 feet by 60 feet, that there's a meeting participant in the room with me, but that it is so far away in the room that I can't hear them clearly, or I could benefit from some voice lift, meaning there's a microphone pointed at that person who's 40 feet away from me for the sake of capturing their voice to send to the far side. But what if I could also use that microphone to capture that talker and have their voice come out of the loudspeaker closest to me? So that can happen, and that is absolutely a complex room design. You should take care, because if you ask someone if they want voice lift in their room, apropos of nothing, they might say, yeah, sure, why not? But there's definitely a lot more detail to that. When it comes to wireless microphones, it's possible, but I would advise caution, because again, if we're pointing a microphone at one person in the room, well, then it's easy to map that one microphone that's covering the northeast corner of the room and say, okay, have it come out of the loudspeaker in the southwest corner, but do not have it come out of the loudspeaker in the northeast corner, because that's where the microphone is. And if I have the output of that microphone come out of a loudspeaker right above it, that's how I can get into feedback. And that's why we call it a mix minus. You're gonna minus or subtract the microphone that's in a local zone from the loudspeaker that's powering that zone. If you've got a wireless microphone, however, well, that person could walk anywhere. So it gets difficult to mix minus a wireless mic unless you tell your presenter with the wireless microphone, this is your area, stay on the stage. And then you have that presenter microphone come out of the loudspeakers, in the back of the room. So it's possible, it can be done, it is done, though take great care with how you configure your mix minus.
Great. Thank you, Ross. We have a few more popping in here, and some of these might get answered in the next session, the next part that we do about complex rooms. James says, would you consider the Shure wireless mic broadcast quality? For example, if we have a broadcast setup for a live stream client who has a podcasting studio, would this arrangement make sense versus a traditional Shure mic setup like an MV7 Plus? We work with YouTubers and content creators who are always looking for options. So I'm wondering if this adds needless complexity. And then he also writes, or versus the SM7B, which is what we often use.
Yeah, this is a new front. When is a podcast studio a conference room? And when should you start drawing from your conference room set of tools for something like a traditional broadcast venue? And we're seeing people kind of go on either side of this line. I know I've done a design recently that started as 4 SM7Bs. This was a live, it was a podcast, but it was about a game, and forgive me, I forget the board game, but there are 4 players, and they were going to do SM7Bs because they're like, well, in our podcast studio, when we have 2 people, that's what we use. So why wouldn't we do that when we have 4 people around the table? Well, there's cabling and there's cost and there's the boom arms, and if you're being active over the table, what ended up happening is we went to the MXA 901, which is sort of the little brother to the 920. It covers that 20 by 20 square foot space. Just put it right up above them in the ceiling, and it covered their conversation in exactly the same way. Now, does it sound as good as a person talking close up to an SM7B? It does not. That is a classic radio broadcast sound. That's why it's so popular. And the MB7 is sort of the USB enabled version of an SM7B. I would love to put an SM7B in front of everyone in every conference room, because that's how you would sound the best, because I'm an audio guy. But no one wants to deal with that from a cable management or a mic technique. That's probably a good question. The ceiling mics, they are a lot more forgiving in how you are orientating yourself to the microphone. Whereas an SM7B or an MV7, you really want to be kind of right up on that mic. That's a dynamic vocal microphone. That's what that is meant to do. So you could have success in either direction. I don't think you're needlessly adding complexity. If in your podcast you have remote participants, you have people calling in, and you don't want to give people headphones and have them talking into an SM7B, yeah, throw an MXA 902 in the ceiling. It's got a loudspeaker. It'll cover your participants. It absolutely can work. Is it more expensive or not? I think you'll find it's very close. By the time you consider all of the cabling and running SM7Bs into a mixer, that's probably another consideration. Do you have an engineer in the room? They probably want a little more tactile control of what's going on. Or are you just pressing record and then you are in the podcast yourself? Maybe a ceiling mic, something like this from this world does make sense, because I'm not doing much management of anything right now, and I could just have a ceiling mic above me and I'd be fine. Sorry, long answer there,
No,
but fun question.
good answer, and we'll probably cover some of this more in the complex systems. For those of you who are wondering, I'll just go ahead and answer it. This webinar will be available on demand afterwards. So if you're missing anything, you want to go back and review any of this, it'll be available on demand. And as always, you can reach out to us, sales@empirepro.com, for any help with any of these solutions. I'm going to do one more question, and then we're going to go into complex systems. This one is for both of you. It says, what type of network switches are required for the PTZOptics and Shure MXA microphone deployments? Do they need to be Dante or AVB enabled? Do they need to be PoE plus or just PoE?
For a Move 4K, you will need PoE plus. And once we get into like our next generation of cameras, probably plus plus. But right now it's PoE plus. There's no requirement as far as Dante in the switch for cameras. Mostly we use Netgear. Little plug for Netgear.
Great. Hey, Ross, what about on your end?
So I just real quick typed in Audinate Dante network switch requirements. From the Shure side, we are using the Dante protocol. So if you take a look and if you type that in, it'll get you right to this landing page. This is a little summary from Audinate. What are the minimum requirements for switches in a Dante network? I think frankly, I'm using a Netgear AV switch as well. No free ads, I know, but they are easy to use. And their Shure profiles built in. But basically, if I had to summarize, and I'm an audio guy, so definitely do your own research here, but a gigabit managed switch are usually the buzzwords you're looking for. Because Dante is live audio, we want to be able to assign quality of service per port within the switch so that we can prioritize network traffic that's got live audio going on, so that somebody loading a web page or sending a document to a printer doesn't interrupt your network audio stream. But you can use any switch that meets those requirements. From our perspective, that's mostly what we're focused on.
Great. All right, we're going to come back. There's some more questions in here. Don't worry, we will get to those, but I want to make sure we get into the complex room setup. And for that one, Ross, I think you're up.
Sure. When we think of a complex room, it can be that the room is multi-purpose. So now we're sort of designing for multiple use cases. So we need a system that is very flexible. It can be that the room happens to be very large, and so we need multiple microphones covering multiple zones. Like we were just chatting about, voice lift is a very important detail. As soon as somebody says voice lift or mix minus, in my mind, that is immediately a complex application. So these are some things to watch out for. And camera track, again, from the audio perspective, I think of camera tracking as complex. I'm sure Brandy will provide some better insight there into why it might not be as complex as I think it is. I'm just ignorant on the topic. But that is something I always ask, because if you are looking for camera tracking from Shure, the first place I always start is that MXA 920. And we spoke a lot about it as from the audio side, but in terms of what it does for your camera tracking system, the MXA 920 will provide XYZ coordinates per talker for up to 8 simultaneous talkers in the room per MXA 920. The accuracy of those XYZ coordinates is 1 centimeter square for the MXA 920. So I want to repeat those because those are some key specifications to keep in mind. MXA 920 tracks up to 8 simultaneous talkers with individual lobes. So they're all from our perspective, on their own separate audio channel, but we are also sending externally XYZ coordinates, so where they are in space, accurate to 1 centimeter square of the source of that voice, of the talker's mouth. So that is, as soon as someone says voice lift and or camera tracking, I immediately go to an MXA 920. Now, some other things to consider, and then I definitely want to turn it over to Brandy. I always think in my mind, a larger, more complex space, those plug-and-play solutions are great, but acoustically challenging spaces probably require a more detailed approach from a signal processing standpoint. Here are some Shure processors. So again, I'm on the Microflex ecosystem homepage. Under the DSP section, you see we've got our IntelliMix P300, Team certified, Zoom certified, Cisco certified. I think there are more, they just don't fit on our little window there. This can manage up to 8 microphone inputs in terms of echo cancellation, noise reduction, all those things. We have IntelliMix Room, which is a software version. You can think of it as a software implementation of the P300. So load a piece of software onto your favorite PC. and it makes the PC a Dante transmit and receive device. So you can send, actually, there's an 8-channel version, which would be exactly like the P300, and there's a 16-channel version of IntelliMix Room. So a larger room, and you want to manage everything directly in the PC. Lastly, there's our IntelliMix Foundation System. This is referencing back to that IntelliMix Room kit, where you've got the compute device in the kit. So this is a Windows 11 PC. You could think of this PC as having a P300 built in. That is what makes it a Shure compute device. Again, IntelliMix Room kits, IntelliMix Foundation Systems as the compute. This is intended to run a Microsoft Teams room only. But from an audio processing standpoint, you have an 8-channel DSP built in. And I'll show you what that looks like in Designer. So here is the P300. So your first 8 Dante inputs, each of those have acoustic echo cancellation, noise reduction, automatic gain compensation. Now, what counts as a Dante input? Well, it could be one microphone. I'm wearing a ULXD microphone right now. I could route that in here, and then it gets processed by the P300. Or you can have one MXA 920 is one Dante input. You're using that single automatic zone of coverage. You put an MXA 920 into a single Dante input. So maybe your room is 60 by 60. Now I need 4 MXA 920s. And I'm sure a lot of PTZOptics cameras. But I can have 4 MXA 920s routed into the P300. So still a single compact fixed architecture DSP. Everything laid out here, this is how it comes out of the box. So you don't have to build this structure. We also have wireless microphone systems. We saw the Next 2 earlier. We have a Next 4. We have a Next 8. Historically, traditionally, you would take an 8-channel wireless microphone system and route it to all 8 individual inputs. Excuse me. Well, with our new MXW APX8, for example, here's an 8-channel wireless mic receiver that itself has an auto mix output that includes echo cancellation, noise reduction. So again, I'm doing processing at the microphone endpoint level, so I could route multiple 8-channel wireless microphone outputs into a single P300. This does get complex, but this is how you configure a 20, 30, 40 wireless microphone room, or a combination of wireless microphones and MXA 920 ceiling array mics coming into a single P300. Now, right before I pass it over to Brandy here, so here's an example of, we saw the MXA 920, how you could draw the coverage of the MXA 920, and that would be kind of that medium complexity example. Well, that is something called automatic coverage. If we turn that off, what we're going to find is that now I have discrete control. So I said we could capture up to 8 simultaneous talkers. Well, in automatic coverage mode, you're letting the microphone deploy those lobes to where it finds talkers. We can do something called steerable coverage, where now maybe I want to lock. This is, again, creating that mix minus for a voice lift system. Maybe I want to make sure I send this microphone out to this corner of the room. Maybe I want its coverage to be a little bit narrower. Maybe I've got this really odd shaped room. You know, there's all sorts of things you can do here. This is kind of a silly example, what I'm drawing up, but just to illustrate the point, I have complete discrete control of each of the 8 channels within the MXA 920. I could then map these, so when there's an active talker in this zone, to trigger a recall in my camera system. If there's more questions, certainly happy to dive in. I mean, once it gets complex, we can go in many different directions. But Brandy, I think this is a great time to toss it over to you.
Oh, we're on mute there. There you go.
Okay, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, so there are many ways you can go with a complex room. It could be you have a large room with dividers. So like where you set it up into separate training rooms, but you can open it up to make it a large conference room space. You're talking maybe multiple locations, right? So then we look into like larger image, larger zoom levels. So 30 times zoom, a 20 times zoom, maybe put a simple track 3 to follow a trainer. A simple track 3 is it's new to the PTZOptics line. It was from our huddle cam line, but it will, you can actually set preset zones. So it's a dual lens tracking camera. I actually have one right here, and I thought about grabbing it, but now I really wanna.
Hmm.
But you can see, like, I have where so you can see there's like a dual lens right here. So it has a panoramic lens and the PTZ lens. So the panoramic lens allows you to set preset zones, but it also, you could stream both. But when it comes to a more complex room, you might want to look into like a Super Joy 3, so our controller. Our Super Joy 3 is a controller that allows you to like start tracking, turn tracking on and off. You can set presets to select your presenter. You can select presets to move 4 cameras at one time. You can have an HDMI out to a display so you can actually see what camera is doing what. It could actually work in conjunction with your audio tracking once your audio tracking is set up. When you go into a more complex space and you have multiple cameras, then you'll need to look into maybe like an Inogeny switcher to be able to control the multiple camera locations in the background. The awesome thing about our auto tracking compared to our competitors is, one, it's free. Two, it like, if there's, say, Ross and I are having a conversation and we're just going back and forth really quick, it's not going to try and go back and forth with our conversation. It'll zoom out to get us both. Some of the best auto tracking in the industry. It's very intelligent. Our product development team, by the way, is like bar none the best in the industry. They are housed in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, which is where we're located. So like, they're in the US. We know what is needed in the US. So like, if somebody brings us something, says, hey, we need this, like, they go to work. And everything stays in beta until like it is 100% perfect. Like, it does not come out of it. So when I say something works, like when we send a camera out, it works. Like, when we push a firmware update for features, it's going, right? It is working. And we're very quick to react. But another part of, let's see, a complex space is Hive Studio. So when you look at multi-locations, we have a product called Hive Studio. This is a cloud-based control system that you can use to control cameras from anywhere in the world. So say you're headquartered in Cincinnati, which is where I am. Well, not really, but north of. So you're in Ohio and you've got a location in Pennsylvania, one in Los Angeles, one in Orlando, you can actually control all the cameras and make sure everything's running properly from Ohio. So I'm going to show you that real quick. I actually have the studio up, unless they kicked me out, because I can't move it because they're doing a live show. Oh, they're out. Okay, so I can't move them. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Does it look like a studio?
it does.
It'd be nice if they turned the lights on. But I can control the cameras from here if I had enough internet to do it. Like right now, my internet bandwidth with me using a call, being on a call and trying to control the cameras at the same time, it's not working very well.
Oh, there's somebody walking in.
Yeah, you can see somebody's walking in. That's John Roberts. So like, it is bandwidth intensive, right? So you got to have the internet bandwidth. I'm just on home internet. So to be able to control them, I can see that Paul Richards is in there as well. With that P up there, see that round circle, the P that popped up. I have multiple studios. when I'm working on getting my studio set up, my home studio, so that'll be the Brandy Johnson one. Let's see if the double headers, that'll probably be easier to run. No, double header's not on. That's a double-headed turtle, by the way. It's usually easier to run him because it's just like it's just 2 cameras and not 4. You can see you can do a multi-view or a single view. You can set up preset positions. You can record from here. You can ISO record. You can select multiple cameras to record. It'll record on your host computer. You can start output via NDI. You can set different image presets for different lighting situations. You can share privileges. So I could decide if I want somebody to be an admin, producer, or viewer, and I just get an email address and hit send invite if I had privilege to do so. Some reason I'm not an admin still. I can see, this is a great way also to check your camera health. So I can see the health of all my cameras. So if I wanted to, like if I had all these different locations and I had access to cameras in all these different locations, I could click on each one of them and look at the camera health. I also will get alerts on my computer as long as Hive is up and running of what's going on in the studio. So it's pretty cool. You can fully customize it. It is an annual subscription and it's in beta. Again, one of the things we do is we stay in beta until we make sure it's 100%. There's some things we want in here. We want switching before it gets out of beta. We want the ability to do auto tracking within the Hive and set up auto tracking within the Hive studio before it is out of beta. But you'll be able to do cinematic movements. Somebody's controlling the cameras. Oh, that's me. It's finally working.
Nice. Yeah, Brandy, I've actually been to this demo before for Hive. It's pretty incredible. That sounds like something we might want to do specifically in a future instance of this. It's
Yeah,
quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a whole training probably in itself for all the features that it's going to do. And we'll do that when we're closer out of beta. So that's what I would suggest. There's so many different scenarios. When it's a complex room, I would just suggest like getting our team involved and engaged. Partners at PTZOptics.com. That is a way that you get our whole sales team. I'm the North American sales manager, so I manage the sales team, but I also manage distribution currently. And then I have a West Coast guy, Justin Shapiro. I've got a Central guy, Matthew Richards, and then I've got my East guy, Kevin Powers. But this email hits everybody on the team. So if somebody's traveling, somebody's going to respond to you. So we are big on, making sure that you guys like get answers quickly. Registrations are done quickly, right? We do register projects. Also, we have a 5-year warranty on all our cameras, 3-year on accessories, and our customer support is US based in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. So Eastern time zone, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. We are working on getting somebody on the West. So to be continued on that.
Very good. Thank you, Brandy. All right, we are heading into the final 5 minutes here, and I just want to hit at least a couple more questions. We're going to ask that maybe try to keep responses to like 30 seconds or less. This one is from Benjamin regarding the MXA 920 Next mics connecting to third-party ceiling speakers in a meeting room. Would external DSP be necessary / recommended for additional gain before feedback? For you, Ross?
Recommended? I think it's fair to say that would be recommended. Yeah, if you're just sending directly to a speaker with nothing in between to control gain or EQ, that could be risky. I would feel more comfortable. I mean, you would be relying on the volume in your conferencing platform, Zoom or Teams, to control the loudspeakers, and that might not be the experience you're looking for.